All right. So what's up next? We have built this animating eye so far, and what I'd like to do is be able to generate some different random eyes. And let's see. Before we do that, I guess, maybe we should refactor this a little bit. Because I think what we want is for the eye to have its own model, essentially. And most of the, well, all the data at the moment is being stored in our main.elm. And let's see, I'm also going to lower the frame rate here by a little bit in our animation. All right, that still looks fine. Just to reduce the CPU load on my computer while it's trying to stream and encode this all at the same time. All right, so let's clean this up. So what kind of information is in our eye at the moment? We have an animating piece of information about how open the eye is at a given time. And we also have this t value, which is used to rotate and animate the iris. So let's see. I'd like to start defining a model with some of our basic parameters in here. So I guess let's make it just called eye. And let's put some of these basic values into it, like iris size is a float, and pupil size is a float, and the eye size is a float. And then the other thing we're going to have in here is our blink start. And I think what I'd like to do is have the logic for the blink animation actually handled by this eye module. So we're going to have our blink start stored in here. And we're also going to make an action that'll be available for people to use. And this will be called start blink. It'll take the current time and take an eye and give back a new eye. And this will just change the blink start time. And we'll need to import time, fine. Okay. So this is essentially our update section. And down here we have our view section. And up here is our model. And we need to expose time from here as well. So now, I'm going to rename this to be, well, no, I guess let's leave that the same. And let's call this view, which is going to take a couple things, an eye and a time, and give back a collage.form. And we're going to move some of our logic that's currently in main into there, specifically all this animation stuff. So what I want to stay in here is we're going to have the close animation, the open animation. These values are both coming from I now. Then this is what we're leaving in here. And then we get the now as a separate parameter. Same thing here. And we need to import animation. And this we'll just call model in here. And it's saying, oh, and this one is actually the I function. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that compiles. Now we should have a problem. Oh, no, there's no problems here yet, but what we want to change is get rid of all this. And instead of using I.I, we're going to use I.view, pass it model.now, and also pass it our model.I. And our problem is I doesn't expose view. Okay, so now it's only going to expose the I type, the start blink function, and the view function. All right. So now here, we're going to import. Oh yeah, we have this already. We're going to expose the I type. We don't need animation here anymore. And this is wrong now. We need to have an initial I. So this is going to be what? I dot new, I guess. Or let's call it create. Well, I guess this will be all the same things that are in here. So if I were publishing this I module, I would make a function here to construct it, and then this would not be a type alias. It would be a new union type with a record inside. But because this is just private in here, I am just going to create this record directly instead in our other module here, rather than defining a function to do it. So our iris size was, and we still have this all in here, so the iris size is 120. The pupil size is 50. The eye size is 200, and the blink start time initially is 0. And now there's a problem with update. Right, so here we're going to convert our I by calling I.startBlink with T and giving it the old I. All right. So I guess our final test here is going to be, let's see, I guess we should add multiple eyes. So we'll make this a list instead, and we'll also have a coordinate for each of them. So we'll have an X and a Y and an I, and we'll take a list of that. So then our initial one is going to be at 0, 0. And then let's add a second one so we can see when we actually have this working. So let's add this at maybe 300, 300. And let's try adding a smaller one. So we'll have an iris size, or let's have the whole thing of 100. I guess let's just do it half the size and see what things look like. And then here, we are, I guess let's just make all the eyes blink at the same time. We'll list.map start blink with T over all the model.eyes. Right. And we also need to destructure the X and Y, because those don't move. And then we'll give back the point and the new eye. All right, so now our view needs to be fixed. So here, I'm going to convert this to be a pipeline instead. And then instead of this single eye, we're going to take model.eyes, list.map over it, of eye.view, and it looks like for better currying, we should swap the order of these arguments. In eye.view, eye.view should take the time first and the eye last, because the eye is likely to change more often than time, because we have multiple eyes per frame now. And this shouldn't actually compile, should it? No, because we're actually list.mapping over a tuple, which gets the X and the Y in it, and also gets the eye. So what we really want to do in here is render the eye, and then move it to its correct location. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So we moved this one too far. So there's our second eye. But these parameters are not being honored for the different sizes yet. And that's because we never passed this stuff in. So I think I'm actually just going to combine these two functions together. So we'll just have rotation t be calculated here, equals now over 1,000. And we'll have our opened equals this. And then we'll just pull all this code in here. Okay, great. So now these 50s can be changed to model.pupil size. The 120s can be changed to model.iris size. And the 200 can be changed to model.eye size. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So let's commit this refactor then. So what did we do here? We extracted a model for our eye, and then actually parameterize the view a bit more in there to use new parameters we added to our model. Okay. Extract eye.model. Cool. Let me push that up for you all. All right. So now, let's switch to randomly generating some eyes. So in our main, what we'll want to do is, in our init, kick off an initial random generation of eyes. And we'll have a message for that. We'll have new eyes, which will take a list of eye. Is that the type? Yeah. Actually, it'll need a list of positioned eyes as well. Then, if we get new eyes, then we're just going to replace in our model, the new eyes is going to equal the eyes that we're getting from the message, and we'll have command.none. And let's see, oh, I forgot my equal sign in there. Got it. And what's messed up here? Eyes, oh, should be a list. Oh, right, this needs a list in here. That's why I had those extra parentheses. Okay, cool. So now our initial model, let's make that be empty. And I'll save this data temporarily. So now when we kick this off, we're going to want to random.generate a, let's see, I always forget the parameter order. I think the message type goes first, new eyes, and we're going to do a random.list, and let's make 3 of them. And then we'll use random eye, which is a generator we'll define right now. Random eye is going to be a random generator of tuples of points and eyes. So to make the tuple, we'll use random.map2 with the comma function. And here we're going to make our point, which will be random.map2 also with the comma, and we'll do a random, if I can type, random.float between -150 and 150, and the same for the y position. Actually, the x should maybe be larger. Oops. And then here, we're going to make a random eye record. So we'll use random.map4 because there's 4 parameters in here. And we're going to use the eye constructor to create that. And then the parameters will be, the first one is a random float. The iris size should be interesting. The iris size should be between, let's say, 20 and 100. And I guess what's interesting is we kind of want these different size values to depend on each other. Like the iris should never be larger than the eye, And the pupil should never be larger than the iris. So I think for that, we want to use one of these chaining things that we have in Elm Random Extra. In here, and we want to chain together functions. We want functions that take an A and give a generator back. So I guess, yeah, okay. So in our case, we're going to want, let's see. We want some different, we want this kind of chained together in a weird way. We want to generate the eye size. Then, given that, we want to generate a generator for the iris size. And then given the iris size, we can create the generator for the pupil size. Okay. So let's try writing these out in types. So we're going to have the pupil generator. He's going to take a float and give back a random generator of float. And this is going to be random.float between let's see. I guess we want to take the minimum of iris size over 10 and just 10. So if the iris is really small, we can have a small value, otherwise we'll use that. And then the maximum is going to be, I guess we don't want it to be the full iris size, but it'll be iris size times 0.9. And we need to import random here. Okay, and this part we haven't gotten to yet. Then our iris generator is also going to take a float. And this will essentially be the same thing, I think, just based on the eye size. Okay, so that seems fine. I guess I'm realizing now there's a simpler way to do this, in that we could just generate some floats that represent like the ratio of sizes between the two things. And then we can use that all to create the eye size. Yeah, that's going to be a lot simpler. Okay, so here's the idea where we'll have our create eye, which is going to take a float, another float, and another float, and give us back an eye. So the first float is going to be the eye size. The second float is going to be the iris ratio, and the last one is going to be the pupil ratio. And these will both be between 0 and 1. And then we're just going to make an eye where the iris size is the eye size times the iris ratio. And actually, let's just stick this all in here as a record instead. So the eye size is going to be eye size. The iris size will be eye size times iris ratio. and the pupil size will be eye size times the iris ratio times the pupil ratio. And the blink start will be 0. Okay, cool. And then we can just generate random floats for all of this. That is a lot easier. Okay, so our eye size will be between 50 and 300. Then our iris ratio will be between, I think, 0.5 and 0.9. Let's see how that works. And then our pupil ratio within the iris will be between 0.2 and 0.9. All right. Oh, and this needs to be map 3 now, because there's only 3 parameters to that function. Okay, and there's some eyes. I think the iris ratio is a bit large. Yeah, okay. That seems a bit better. This one seems kind of crazy. Cool. Okay, so while we're at this, now that we can get overlapping eyes like we have there, I want to have the eye rendering actually draw in the whites of the eyes. And I think to do that, we want the outermost, okay, so we're going to have a couple curves. This one is the bottom curve, this one is the top curve of the eye. Let's see. So the whites are basically just going to take the height and width, and this is going to be a collage.polygon with some stuff we'll fill in a second, which is going to be filled with color.white. And the polygon is going to be this line, which I believe is the top of the eye, added together with the bottom of the eye, which should be this one. Okay, let's see if that fills out properly. I can't tell. These eyes aren't overlapping. Nope, that did not work. Let's try coloring it with pink. Well, maybe that's not the best color to choose. Blue. Oh, we never actually called this, did we? Okay. Right, so now when we make our eye, we will stick this in first. And this takes the width and height. Yeah, okay, cool. So that works. So let's go back to white for that. All right. So what's next? I guess I'd like to change the colors of these a bit. So let's have a color for the iris, a color for the eyelids, and a color for the whites. And I guess before we do that, let's commit this. So what did we add here? We just added the whites and, oh yeah, we added the random generation. Okay, so next up, let's change our eye model. And we're going to add some colors here. So we'll add the eyelid color is a color. Our iris color is going to be a color, and the whites color is going to be a color. And we need to expose color from the color module. And now our main should fail to compile. Yes. Okay. So let's see. What is the best way to simplify this code? I guess the way this is going, we're going to have to keep adding new parameters into here, which doesn't seem that great. Oh, well, I guess the real way to fix this is we should refactor this to change the actual eye model itself to have the iris and the pupil ratios be in there instead of the sizes. So yeah, actually let's do that refactoring. So we're going to have our eye size, and then the iris size. Instead of that, we're going to have the iris ratio, and we'll have a pupil ratio. So that should give us some compile errors down here. And specifically, we can pull that out. This goes away, and this is going to be I now. And this is going to take a bunch of parameters now that we have our model changed. And then in here, in our view, we're going to define each of these things. Where we have that as model dot, and each of these is also model dot. Okay. And then our pupil size and iris size don't come from the model anymore. They're just local variables in this function. And same here, and same here. Okay. Cool. So this is actually slightly better, I think, because we can no longer model states that don't make sense. Well, I guess given the constraint that these two values must be between 0 and 1. Okay. So now, this we need to pass not just 3 parameters, but 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 parameters. And I don't think there's a map7 in the random package, but there is one in the random.extras package, which we need to import. Oh, no, in fact, there is not a map 7. Well, that's unfortunate. So I guess we'll have to use the and then in that case. Let's see, do they show an example in here of using pipelines? No. So let's take a quick look at this and just steal some code from them. In random.extra. Okay, so they just use the and map operator. So let's just define our map 7 here. It's going to equal this, except we're going to have another generator, gen_g. Let's see. I want to rename all of these so this will fit better. Okay, so we're going to use random.map6 with that, and then use gen_g after that. And then we'll just use our map 7 here. Yes, and this is random.extra.andmap. And let's see, rather than using backticks, I'm just going to flip it and use it with pipelines. And this is from random.extra. Okay, so now we can stick all the rest of these in. So the next value was the blank start, so that'll be random.extra.constant 0. And then we're going to have our colors. So let's just stick in some weird colors. Oh, hey Mikey, see you next time. Have a good rest of your weekend. So let's also just stick in some constants for the moment. And we'll write some generators for those in just a second. All right, so we have this one warning about the type signature. Let's just try to fix that up real quick. So map 7 also takes a G and gives an H. And all of this is random.generator. Okay, cool. So that compiles. The issue now is we should be seeing these colors, but we're not because we haven't actually used them in our view yet. So for the whites, let's pass that in, whites color to the whites function. This takes a color, and this will be the color here. Okay, so we have our blue whites. So let's make a generator for that. Whites color generator. And I want this to basically just generate a light color. And I guess also maybe between, within a certain hue range, kind of in the red to yellowish range. So this is going to generate a color. And we're going to use random.map to apply a function to some other randomly generated values. Let's use color.hsl, and then we'll take some random floats. So for the hue, let's see, let's check our HSL picker. So I'd like the hue to maybe be able to go from yellow, so that's 56, maybe 60, and I'd also like to let it come back to pink a bit. So 310, so that's negative 50, if you're thinking of this as a circle in degrees. So between negative 50 and 60 is where I want the hue to fall. And then for the saturation, I always forget, this actually doesn't match the color model that Elm uses. It uses HS. Oh, well, it says it's HSL. Is this right? I guess we'll see in a minute. Okay, so the saturation, that can be anywhere. That'll be from 0 to 1. And the lightness, I want to be pretty high. So that'll be between 1 and maybe 0.9. Oh, and we didn't import, or we didn't expose color here yet. And map, oh, right. We need to use map 3 here. There's 3 arguments to the function we're using. Yeah, okay. There we go. So that's a good whites generator, I think. Okay, on to our next color. So the next one is the iris color. So let's pass that in. So we currently are using 2 colors, the yellow and the green. And I'd like to just have those based off of the same thing. So where's our iris? Here's where we create our iris. So let's add the 2 colors into here. And we'll call it the background color and the foreground color. The dark green is the foreground color. And the yellow in here is the background color for the iris. And then when we draw it, let's try this. So our foreground color previously was color.dark green. And then this, I want to try color.lighten, I think is a thing, with color.dark green, and see what that looks like. Oh, is color.lighten not a thing? I totally thought it was. Core, color, HSL, complement, linear, radial. Okay, nope. I thought there were functions to lighten and darken things, but I guess I'm thinking of Java now. Okay, I think there's a good color package that we can add. Let's check for it. Color extra and color mixing. Let's take a look at these 2. So color extra has a darken and a lighten. Yeah, those look good. Let's also see what blending does. Ah, so it has multiply and overlay and all those kind of things. Interesting. Okay, so that looks good. Let's take a look at this other package too. So this also has lighten, darken, fade out, tint, spin, average, hard light. Yeah, okay. I'm going to try this one just because it seems like everything you need is in this one module. So let's grab this package, install it. All right, great. So this is going to be color.mixing.lighten, and we have to give it some factor. So 0.5, let's try that out. And then we need to import color.mixing. Cool. So that looks pretty good, but I think it's actually lightened too much. So let's just lighten it by 0.3. Yeah, cool. I think that's good. So now, rather than using dark green, this is where we want to use the model.iris color. And we can remove those parentheses. And I believe I had it hard-coded to green right here. Okay. Cool. And now for this, let's make this an iris color generator. And let's define that. And this is basically going to be similar, except we'll stick some slightly different parameters in here. So for HSL, I think the hue can be anything for the eye color. Then the saturation, let's keep this kind of colorful. And then the lightness, I don't think we want it to be too light, but it could be all the way to black, I think. Well, maybe not all the way. Let's go 0.1 to 0.7. Yeah, okay. I think that's looking all right. Certainly not the most natural of eye colors. Maybe we can keep the saturation slightly lower to like 0.7. Whoops, and looks like the dev server died. Yeah, cool. Then the final color we wanted to put in there was the eyelid color. So let's see about that. So that's used to draw the eyelids here. So let's pass it in as a new parameter, and then jump down and add it as a parameter, color. And we will use that here. So I think we had red hard-coded in there. Yeah. So, let's make a skin color generator. And this will also be similar to this, just with slightly different parameters for our HSL. So the hues for this, I guess, are in an even tighter range. Let's see. So between maybe like, what is this? 40, 45, to 25, 45, okay, between 25 and 45. And then for our saturation, this seems like a fairly small range. Let's just have it at like 55 always. Random.extra.constant 0.55, and our lightness, we can go from like 0.7 to like 0.2. Alright, let's try that out. Whoops. Is my saturation value messed up? Or did I use the wrong one in here? Why are we getting green colors? The hue, yeah, should be between 25 and 45. And let's see, let's make sure these colors are in the right order. Yeah, the eyelid color is the first one. And we're getting pink and green. Huh. Oh, am I passing the wrong value in? Let's see. Let's see if we can figure out what I messed up here. Oops. So the hues all seem correct within the range that we asked for. Did I end up passing the wrong value in here? Eyelids are getting the eyelid color. And we're getting the color here. So let's see what the color value is that we're getting. Oh. I think I know what the problem is. The HSL function needs to take colors in degrees. So if we go back to the core package and check the documentation on color.hsl, yeah, we have to use degrees to create the correct value. Okay. So that at least makes sense, and our other color generators are probably off too. Yeah, okay. So let's convert all of these to degrees. Or from degrees to radians. And the same thing here. All right, and then we can get rid of this debugging. And let's see, we seem to have a problem when the iris size is extremely large compared to the eye size. So let's shrink this down a little bit. And it is a little creepy that these all blink at the same time. Maybe let's make the maximum size a bit smaller. Cool. So maybe we can add one more thing before we finish for the day. And I'd like to try to have these eyes change over time. So let's commit this, or meaning we'll have a new eye get generated from time to time. So let's see. So we just added all the random colors. Randomly generate eye colors. And I'll push that up. So the last thing I'd like to do is have this remove and add new eyes to the scene over time. But I don't just want them to pop in and out. I'd like to have them kind of animate in. So that's what I want to work towards next. I don't think it should take too long. Oops, we can kill all this stuff. So that'll be our final goal for today. So let's take another short break before we do that, and when we come back we will add kind of continuous random generation with some animation transition between those. So let's take a short break, and we will be back in just a few minutes.